Acharya ji, namaste. I am an alumnus of BITS Pilani campus, and then I went on to do my MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. So I've had an interest in economics, and you have often said that uh, one of the problems with us is that we don't understand certain terms, but we use them very often. So capitalism is one such term. So recently I read Das Kapital, the first volume by Karl Marx. So I have a question related to that. So in the first chapter itself, there is a term that Marx coins, which is commodity fetishism, right? And what he says is that we have made everything into commodities. That's the basic unit in capitalism, and we think that we can assign it a certain value. Now that value is actually a composition of two things: a use value and an exchange value. And the use value is what we do with that thing, right? For example, a mobile phone can be used by some terrorist to launch an attack, or somebody to connect to your session. So that means there is no unique way of assigning a value using the use value. But at the other end, we can look at it as exchange value. So the theory, the labor theory of value says that that's what Marx arrives at, is that the exchange value, or the cost that we think of things, comes from the associated labor that has gone into it, right? And if we look at even something like a mobile phone, if we break it down into its components and we keep going deeper and deeper, eventually we will reach physical nature. So there is physical nature, and then there is a lot of human labor that has conditioned the physical nature into an object that we are using. So you have often said that we should stay in this world, sansar mein reh ke bhi, we have to use the things around us in the right way, right? So focusing on the use value. It doesn't mean that we should leave everything. We should not use mobile phones, right? We should use things around us in the right way. But at the other end of the spectrum, where we are talking about exploitation of laborers, wage laborers, as well as physical nature itself. When we go right to the bottom, in fact, like in mining and in industries where we literally take earth elements, right? There's a lot of exploitation, very literal exploitation, and that's the source. So the great success of capitalism, according to Marx, is alienation. Why I'm saying that is because where we sit most of the times, we don't know what is happening at the bottom of the chain. So so my question is, without class consciousness, which is ultimately what Marx arrived at, that what we can do to rectify this is class consciousness, which will take care of that exchange value problem. People aren't even aware that they are part of a huge matrix, and right. So with spirituality and the way you put it, we are focusing on the use value. So how do we? I mean, we are tackling one part of the value definition, but the other part of the definition is tackled by class consciousness, according to Marx. So I just wanted to ask your views about that.
No, that's not really true. If use value is the only thing that spirituality talks of, then we would be very happy to accept animal flesh, for example. No? It has a certain use. But is that what spirituality advocates? Don't we talk of knowing where the stuff in your plate comes from? You took the example of the mobile phone and you said that you must be conscious of the mine that rare earth, let's say, comes from, that goes into the mobile. Equally, have we not been continuously talking of knowing where the stuff in that packaged item, food item, is coming from? So, use in spiritual terms includes being conscious of everything in totality. Use, as Marx puts it, is just about fulfilling your desire. If something fulfills your desire, Marx would say it's useful to you. But that's not how Vedanta would look at it. Vedanta would not say that if something is fulfilling my desire, I call it useful. No, not that way. I have to know. Because ultimately the thing of use to me is understanding, bodh, realization. how can I reach that ultimately useful thing if I do not know what is useful to me right now, if I do not know the totality of it? So I really have to know everything. If you're using the mobile phone, that includes knowing all the constituents, components, even the taxation part, even the foreign policy part involved. No mobile phone, at least in India, is fully indigenous. When you are paying for it, you must know where the money is really going to. Same goes with things like selecting a job. Once you accept a job offer, let's say in the campus, it could be the Pilani campus or the IIM campus, is it just about the job being useful to you, or must you also know what your labor is really going towards? In fact, I used to say, you must, before you take up an offer, you must also ask who the shareholders are and how their CVs look. Because ultimately a company exists for the shareholders' profits, does it not? That's the sole purpose of its existence. It exists to maximize shareholder profit. So that's what you work for there. Don't you want to know how they would utilize the profits you are giving them? You work very hard, you give them certain money, and they fly to Dubai and purchase heavy jewelry for their wives and keeps. How does that sound to you? That's the output of your entire month's or year's work. Some random fat woman is now walking around with loads of jewelry. That's what you worked for really. How does that sound? And ostensibly, the company might exist to uplift the face of technology in the country, and you may feel very happy. You might say, oh, this is useful. You might say, oh, it is useful, I'm working here. But the company does not exist merely for its avowed objective. Remember, it exists for the shareholders and the other stakeholders. To the extent practically possible, you must go into all of this. You must ask yourself, what am I doing? What am I doing? That was the reason why I left the bureaucratic option. I would be working in the government without having any control over what my work, my labor, my time is really resulting into. Even if I am the district collector, let's say, I'm a very small pawn. The ones sitting on top are far too powerful to let me work with freedom, let alone go beyond the system. So should I just look at the use that job offers to me? And it could be a very ethical use as well. I could usefully convince me that I am doing some good work on the ground, as many bureaucrats do. They actually do some good work on the ground. But in totality, what does that result into? What does that mean? Some hideous politician will come and say that all the development work I have done in the district has been powered by the funds sanctioned by him, and that will enable him to win the next elections. That's the net output of all the work that I have done as the district collector. Penny wise, pound foolish. That's the reason I dropped that idea. Right? So that is enabled greatly, that consciousness you're talking of, that is enabled greatly in this age by technology. Today you can really know, and that's what I was just talking of. Use technology to the fullest. How was our friend here saying that he feels lonely? Why don't you get into the integrity of everything? Don't you want to know where your t-shirts come from? It's probably coming from Bangladesh. Do you know the kind of shop it's being produced in? Not sure. But there might be child labor, who knows? And it's interesting, no? Google is a blessing, is it not? Your t-shirt, your specs, your cosmetics, your shoes. Don't you want to research on all those things? Today you need not even move to a physical library. Everything is available mostly for free. And even if there are subscriptions, they are very affordable. So no and no. And I'm talking of very basic objective worldly knowledge, not even inner realization. That's the right use of technology. Let it enable knowledge. No point, for example, cursing China and not even knowing the depth of Chinese investment in India. What kind of patriotism is this? Where you know neither India nor China, nor trade and not even patriotism. You know none of these, and yet you shout aloud as a patriot. What's going on? Are we really even literate? Are we? This mobile phone in your hand is your great enabler towards freedom, if you know really how to use it. It will tell you of things that will be very disturbing and therefore very liberating. I talk so much of food, for example. Animal flesh is obviously obnoxious for 1,000 reasons. But even the vegetarian food that you are taking, do you bother to read up about it? Do you know what's going on? And it does not really require class consciousness, believe me. It just requires consciousness. If you start belonging to a class, it impedes consciousness. You need not be identified with a class or community or any division of any kind. That hinders consciousness. Don't you see that? The moment I belong to a certain group, will I have the freedom to really know? Or will I be constrained by the dynamics and identities of that group or class or whatever? So all you need is consciousness. Is it getting too heavy? I think it is. Huh? You are great people, really. When I was your age, I wouldn't have tolerated this kind of thing. Disgusting. For 2 hours, somebody is talking some arcane stuff. No?
Acharya, the timing for today's session was...
Oh, thank God. You are a wonderful audience. Seriously, how old are you? 17, 18, 20? 19. Wonderful, wonderful.